Hi, everyone. Stephen Van Tassel here, Pest Geek Podcast, giving you another episode of Living the Wildlife. And we're glad to have you on board. We don't have a sponsor this week, but if you're interested in sponsoring, definitely reach out to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. That's wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Today, we have a very special guest, Dale Hodgson from Rose Pest Solutions out of Troy, Michigan, and that is the oldest, longest running pest control company in the country, which was rather surprising to me to see that in your bio that you sent over to me. That's an amazing achievement for that company. So welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, tell us a little about yourself and your title at Rose Pest Solutions and what you do.
Well, apparently in my company, I'm the only one of my kind. I'm a regional technical manager. I've been with Rose for 16 years now. I am a board certified entomologist, and I just obtained my CWCP just about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, congratulations for that.
Thanks to you for that.
Okay, all right, pushing it along here. The CWCP, for those who don't know, that's a Certified Wildlife Control Professional. It's a certification from the National Wildlife Control Operators Association. It is undermarketed and underused. That's my criticism of how the program's been run. But nevertheless, we're glad to have more people on board with it. So why is it you say you're unusual? Is because you're the only regional? There's most companies don't have regional.
I'm the only regional technical manager for our company. I'm based out of Ohio.
Okay.
We service multiple states. We do Michigan, Ohio, part of Indiana, part of West Virginia, part of Kentucky, part of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And I'm based in Ohio. Yeah, we have, I just checked today, I just checked our personnel records today. We have 328 people in the field.
Wow.
So we're a fairly large company. And then we have about just south of 350 folks in our organization.
So where do you rank in the pest control 100?
I honestly, I don't know, but it's pretty high up.
Yeah. Okay. You're probably top 20.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Wow. That's okay. Well, here you have someone who knows a lot. So the question that I wanted Dale to discuss today is that the transition or the incorporation of wildlife control services with a pest control company, because some companies have tried to do that and have failed. Some have been quite successful. And so I know that Rose Pest Solutions is getting more into wildlife control and incorporated that into their scheme. And so what were some of the challenges and victories that you had in that transition? And definitely speak a little louder. You're coming in a little light on me.
Okay. Let me see if I can increase my mic a little bit. Let's try that. Is that any better?
A little better.
Okay. Our transition has been going on for the past number of years. We had dabbled in wildlife to the point of somebody would call for a raccoon or a squirrel. We would set a trap and remove it. And I have a fairly strong wildlife background myself. And I had always wondered why more pest control operators weren't getting into the wildlife end of things.
Okay.
Some of the wildlife folks weren't getting into the pest control thing. And I kind of made it a personal mission to blend the two together, kind of hybridize everything. And it's been a challenge. There's been some things that I've learned definitely the past few years. First of all, I would say you have to find the right people to be able to do this. Wildlife management is not pest management. It's a different, quote unquote, animal.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it really is.
That. So do you separate your workers?
We can, but we have, we do separate them, but we do have some folks that are very good at both.
Oh, really? Okay, that's unusual.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, they are few and far between, but yeah, we do have some folks that will do both and are extraordinarily good at it.
So that would be your first line of advice, is try to make sure you find one worker to do wildlife control, one worker to do pest control, and keep those relatively separate.
I would keep them relatively separate because a lot of times in the pest management end of things, service technicians run routes, and doing animal work as part of a route is a little bit disruptive. because we have to go out and respond maybe a little bit quicker. And that will throw a wrench in somebody's schedule. Pest management as a rule is fairly scheduled,
Right.
but animal work is not. Some people are good at integrating the two, other folks not so much. But yeah, it's been my experience actually to have somebody that's more dedicated to wildlife to do that.
What were some of the other challenges you confronted?
To do that sort of work. And okay, the first thing we had to figure out was routing, because normal pest management personnel are used to running routes. They have service areas, and as you know, animal work is not like that. Somebody may call in, have an animal problem, and it has to be dealt with pretty quickly. That was the first thing. We have a combination of, we have people that are dedicated to do wildlife. We have other folks that their routes are set up in such a way that they can do wildlife within their area, or they have smaller routes and we can send them out. The other thing is a person to be able to do that kind of work. It's very rare to find somebody that can do both pest management and wildlife work. There are people out there, but you really have to find them.
Yeah.
And have an interest in it. When we talk to people about doing wildlife, we have to make sure that they know what they're getting into.
And what are the big sticking points that you found?
The biggest sticking points would be time. That's usually been our biggest thing, especially when we have some distance involved, when we have to go out and check a trap. For a while, we had to physically check traps.
Right.
Now, some states require that.
Yeah.
Other states not. And thank God, where I am now, Ohio is allowed remote sensing. So we can set up cameras and alarms and things like that, and have notification that way. And that's been a godsend for us. Michigan just started doing this. Indiana will not allow it. I had a conversation with those folks just probably less than a month ago.
But don't they allow the client to check?
They can allow the client to check, but I have a little bit of an issue with that, because, as far as I guess call it custody chain, if you will.
Okay.
I want the actual person to check the trap. But if they do have, and then there's always the thing with documentation. We have gotten around that. We'll have a client maybe check a trap for us, but we will record that we will document that conversation and the time and the activity, so we have that on record.
Right.
That seems to have worked for us.
Sure. See, I was in a state where it wasn't allowed. You couldn't even allow the client to check. Yeah. My eyeballs had to check the trap every day. Yeah. So It definitely shrunk your service area dramatically.
Absolutely.
And that's why I got so much into blind setting, because you wanted to get the job over as fast as possible. You just didn't want to be visiting empty traps all the time. Yes. So, and so what are the qualities you look for in a wildlife tech? What are some of the qualities that someone has between a wildlife tech and a PCO?
Well, for both, at least in my mind anyway, and I hate to say this, but I'll model that person after myself. You have to be fairly able to think on your feet and be independent. I don't require a lot of supervision, and you have to be able to be out there, be able to make decisions in the field, proper decisions that are ethical, for the client's benefit, and even for the animal's welfare. We have to look at that too.
Yeah.
And that goes for pest management and for wildlife work. It needs to be the person has to be very conscientious of what they're doing.
Okay. I always thought of it, you need someone who is task oriented and who can follow and who doesn't skip steps unless they have a good reason why they're skipping steps.
Yes. And I like a lot of detail.
Concrete, sequential.
Yeah. Everything has an order. Everything there's a way to do things.
That's right. Yeah. And when they start tweaking around with it, that's usually when something goes wrong, unless they have enough experience to tell the difference, because even when you do everything right, things can go wrong.
Absolutely. We both know that. I've been in this industry for well past 30 years, and I still learn something every day.
Sure. And so do you, did your company start off with just what I would call the easy stuff, which would be ground animals, you know, skunks,
Yes.
raccoons, and then move to, you know, for me, level 2 is ladder work. And then level 3 is more specialty stuff like bats and maybe getting out to beaver and coyotes and that sort of thing.
That's almost exactly what we've been doing.
Okay.
We are at the point now where we've actually done a lot of bat exclusion this year. We have
Really?
a whole department in our company called Special Services.
Nice.
They do the fumigation and the very intricate, detailed work. They do the bat exclusion for us.
Oh, okay. You're
And
used to heights.
there are a crew of five of those folks.
Wow.
And they have been very busy this year.
No kidding. What do you think the reason is?
I think some of it may be a side benefit to the COVID.
Oh,
People are home and people are hearing things, and our animal work in the past 5 years has grown. I would say at least 20% every year.
that's amazing. And even in the climate where increased competition, aren't you seeing more single man operations out there, or are you seeing some of those drop off?
We're seeing a little bit of that drop off. What I am seeing though is, at first when we first started doing this, and what really pushed me to help, get this started, was I would hear phone calls come into the office about, somebody had an animal issue. Oh, we can't do that. Here's a phone number for someone else. And it drove me insane. And to me, that was revenue left on the table or giving it away.
Right.
Like, why are we doing this? So I talked to, our president, bought into it. I said, we can get something going here. And working with our special services crew, I don't run special services. I just kind of help them along with some technical expertise that I may have, or I have, with my trapping experience. And that's really helped out. And then that's, and we've gone out and trained our folks too.
And let's talk about that training process. So
Mhm.
what would be, if someone's coming in as a wildlife control operator, what would be the training process for you?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of book learning that has to be done. We'll do that first. In Ohio, particularly, you have to have a certification in wildlife through the DNR, which is not the pesticide applicator certificate.
Right.
Different. So we get that, and then usually in Ohio, they'll either come to a class or I will go out with them, and we do a lot of hands-on work.
Okay.
And we just take it from there and start them off slow. We start them off with maybe some ground animals, and and see what folks' disposition is too. Because I've had people out with me that after they started doing this, they found out it really wasn't for them.
Right.
So they had to do something else.
I've heard companies, before they even hire someone, they do their job interview actually is going out in the field, and they'll say, you think you can kill animals? Because is your company a kill, or do you no kill? What's your policy?
We follow the state guidelines of what we have to do.
Okay.
I mean, there are times when euthanasia is required, and
required. Okay. So they would actually euthanize animals in front of the worker to make sure that they don't get it all squishy on you.
Yes.
And then they will climb a ladder job to make sure they're not afraid to climb a ladder.
Yeah. Our company, we base everything for consistency. We base everything on what Michigan's doing, because that's where our corporate headquarters is.
Yeah.
And they go by the veterinary euthanasia standards.
Okay.
Basically what we have are CO2.
We may lose that. That's not a guarantee, folks. I'm a long time critic of following the AVMA guidelines. That's a deal with the devil, if you ask me. So that's me talking, not Rose Pest. So
I agree, and that's my opinion. That of Rose Pest Solutions, but yes, I agree with you.
I think we need to start really thinking seriously about that. Yeah. So does your company use, so let's talk about some of the equipment you folks use. Is it, obviously cage traps, box traps, that would be pretty standard.
Yes.
Do you do anything more beyond that? Like you get into some contr style traps? Do you do mole work?
On occasion we do.
Okay.
I just had a couple of jobs not long ago where people have they wanted to try contr or body groomers. It's like, if you haven't used it, don't. I will
Don't.
come kill you.
Yes.
Because I had usually for fun, I'll take a 220 with me or something like that,
Mhm.
and take a stick and just set it. And it's like, this is what happens when you don't do this right.
That's correct. Yeah, it might be someone's cat if you're not careful. So,
Yes. There's that, and I don't want people getting hurt,
right, right.
which is a whole nother realm.
So do you do moles? Got a lot of moles out in
Yes,
that
we do.
region. Yeah, you do
Yes,
moles.
most of the time for us, we don't trap so much, but we'll use the talparid.
Okay. Are you happy with Talparid?
It seems to be doing a job for us. Yeah, we've actually done a fair amount of work with it. So it's
Really?
been,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I've heard good things about Talparid. A little pricey, from what
it's a
I
little
understand.
pricey.
A little
Yes. Yeah.
pricey, but I guess if you're not checking traps, I love trapping moles, so I was a little partial to that. Plus, you have the happiness of the confirmed kill, so which is always, with a toxicant, you're always wondering, did I get it? Are you
Yeah, that's
sure?
right.
How do you
Yeah.
know, right? So
Yeah.
where do you see the industry going? I mean, Rose Pest Control, obviously you're putting up some big numbers. You have a lot of workers. You're starting to move into the wildlife control space, and really thrive there, it sounds like. So where do you see the industry going?
Uh, well, I see the industry going a little more, and I've learned this from from NCOA's annual meetings that I go to every year. I see you,
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you.
and we go. I think the technology is finally starting to catch up.
Yeah.
With game cameras, the transmitters that are out there now, that is a time saver.
Hmm.
Um, I also think too that there is some work to be done with drones. That we can do some surveillance with drones in both pest management and the wildlife end of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so. Because I understand you have your pilot's license.
yes, I do.
Yeah, and I got mine. So I'm still struggling with some control issues with mine. I think I need to get a more expensive one that'll do a lot of things for me. But it's kind of windy here in Montana, which is a little troublesome at times.
Yeah, I haven't taken a drone out on a job yet. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I'd like to do it around my house, but I'm too close to an airport.
Yeah,
So
that.
so I got to drive out and find a place to do it. So anyways, I know excuses. So you
I was
think
doing some
drones?
work and
What's
on
that?
mine, and I put one in a tree just the other day.
Yeah, well, I lost my first one.
Oh
So
no!
I was using it, and all of a sudden it just started going away. I couldn't get it back, and then I could not find that thing. I don't know where it just. I knew it was going down because I was telling it to go down, and I never did find it.
We'll have to talk about a return home feature.
Well, I didn't have it set up right, so it was not always as easy. So that was my first experience with a drone. It was gone. So
Yeah, that's the area that's where I see the industry going.
yeah,
As a company, what we don't do a very good job of yet, but we're starting to, is what to do after the job is done, particularly for wildlife, because in pest management, you can take some excluder, plug a hole, that's not a big deal. But
right.
when you get into, some of the wildlife work, you have to know some fabrication
Yes.
and that. And quite frankly, we do very little of that at this point.
Oh,
Again,
okay.
we get into that yet. That's a whole nother talent.
Well,
So
there is some training coming up on exclusion and metal bending, and so my understanding is the National Wildlife Control Operators Association is that's their theme, and I guess the 2021 meeting in
okay.
Florida. So they're gonna really, I guess, ratchet that up. I think that's what's happening this coming year. I'm not a board member anymore, folks. So I'm just a working stiff like the rest of you. So I'm not a board member. So that was my understanding, and I think that's where they're going to go. But stay tuned for more
Yeah.
information. If anything else, certainly the industry is moving in that way. So you're seeing, you're thinking drones and some of the other technology. What about some of I mean, the reason why a lot of wildlife control operators haven't gotten into the pest control side, the chemical side, one, they're not interested in bugs. That's part of it. But the barriers for licensing, because many states require 2 years of experience underneath a full licensee before they're allowed to start their own, before they're able to do it on their own. And so that is a barrier for people getting in. So the barriers to getting into wildlife control are extremely low compared to the pest control industry.
Yeah,
So
agree with that. And fortunately, in my area, you don't have quite those restrictions.
okay.
So we can bring people in for our pest management side of things that absolutely cold, and we will train them and get them.
Yeah,
tested.
because they're working for a company though that's already licensed. If they wanted to
Correct.
start their own company,
That's a whole different.
that's right.
story.
That's why a lot of wildlife control
Absolutely.
operators can't do it. So there's a little bit of a, a tariff barrier there that prevents
Yes.
wildlife control operators getting in. And so, yeah, and that's been a problem. But I've even noticed, even with some pest control companies, I don't think they're using some of the pesticides for non-rodents. For example, you think about Avitrol would be one.
Yes.
Ovo control. Has your company explored? Are you using any of those products?
Oh, we use Avitrol routinely.
Okay, and you had good experience with it.
Good experience with it. Again, that goes through our special services department.
Okay.
They're very well versed in it, and they do a lot of bird exclusion too. We do a lot of bird work.
Yeah. And how about ovo control? Has there been any?
We haven't done that.
Okay.
Done that.
Is that because of a lack of demand on the client's part? They don't. Yeah.
I think so. That and familiarity too.
Okay.
I mean, the people that are doing it have been used to using, Avitrol for years.
Right. So, and where do you see? What would you like to see the industry do that it's not doing now?
I would like to see more cross training, and I would like to see some of those barriers that you spoke of broken down a little bit, because there's so much overlap, at least in my mind, between wildlife and regular pest management. A classic example for me is if you go into, you do bat exclusion. Okay, a wildlife person goes in and does bat exclusion. What happens if there are bat bugs in an attic?
Right.
How do you deal with it?
That's right.
You call a pest control company, or since you're already there, I mean, to me, that is where the wildlife folks leave money on the table.
Right.
You get it to the point where everything was more integrated. So, there's some cross training and cross certification there. I think that would be a lot more profitable.
But do you think that the pest control industry will lobby for those regulatory changes because wasn't part of that to prevent workers from getting licensed and separating off and starting their own business and bottom fishing on the company?
No, I don't think we really haven't had a problem with that with our folks, even when we over the years we've had people leave and come and go, but that really hasn't been that much of a problem with us.
So how does Rose then? So employee retention is obviously a big issue. How does Rose keep its employees so long?
It's a good company to work for, and I'm not saying that as a shameless plug. I honestly do that. Like I said, I've been there for 16 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm certainly not the longest lived employee there by far. We have one individual that just celebrated his 50th anniversary.
Oh my goodness.
50th.
That's amazing. Now,
Yeah.
is it the benefits? I mean, describe the culture a little bit. What is it that makes it such a great place to work for?
The culture is fairly open door. If I have an issue, I can go to either my boss, who Mark Shepardigian,
Mm-hmm.
he's who I report to, or I can go straight to Jim Ives, our president. He's very open door.
Wow.
His family, as a rule, as a general, if you want to just call them and talk to them, they're very receptive to that.
So is it anything more than that? I mean, is money an issue? Are you guys at the top of the pay scale?
Yeah, the money's good. I consider myself earning a good living.
No kidding. And do you have do your salespeople, are they making it on the base? Do they have a base salary and then working commission, or is there something more than that? So it's base plus commission?
Yep, they have base plus commission. Service technicians do in the pest management end of it do. They have a base plus a commission on that too, on their production.
And do they get a kicker if they sell an additional service while they're on the job? Okay, that's kind of standard stuff. So what would be your ideal worker? What are you looking for in your ideal worker?
I want somebody that loves what they do. I mean, it's kind of a standing joke with me. It's like, if you don't love this business, it will kill you.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, there's sometimes it takes a lot of hours, and there's weekend work, there's night work.
Yeah.
You got to be able to get dirty. Sometimes you have to crawl in an attic. Sometimes you're underneath a building, or in a crawl space. So it's you really got to love what you do.
Okay.
And I think just having a basic interest. I mean, I've always been kind of a science geek.
Yeah.
I've loved biology ever since I was a little kid.
Okay. Well, that sounds like some pretty some pretty sage advice there in terms of it is important to love what you do and realize that sometimes you're not going to love it the same amount every day, but you need to have more good days than bad days, because there is some fulfillment in work. Work has its own dignity to it, and
that's correct. Yeah, I'm pushing toward the end of my career now, but even after I'm finished, I probably will still be into it in some form or another.
Yeah, it's just part of your life, right? So,
Yes.
and I think that's important. Retirement just means you're not working, you're not punching a clock the same way before. I mean,
Right.
the idea of going to a golf course all day long, I mean, obviously some people love that, but it's not for some of us, to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
But well, great. Well, Dale, we want to thank you for sharing some of your experience and advice with us here on the Pest Geek Podcast, Living the Wildlife. So you are from Rose Pest Solutions, and you can learn more about Rose Pest Solutions at rosepestsolutions.com. And it is the oldest pest management company in the United States. And by that, I would understand as continuously operating company, I would assume,
Yes,
in the United
correct.
States. So, which is a remarkable thing. Thank you very much for sharing. So, all right, everybody, we want to thank you for watching again. Do subscribe to our channel and make sure you subscribe to our podcast. If you have ideas that you would like to have covered in the Pest Geek podcast, definitely reach out to me at the wildlife control consultant at gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. And remember, we want you to live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. Take care, everybody.